Hello everyone and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 5.92, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at the instrument layer. So just as a reminder, you can do the exact same thing by having a couple of instrument tracks and then running them into an audio track or bussing them through. So I could go and I could send these two both to audio 4, and now if I had just say a polysynth on one and an organ on the other, if these are both turned on to record, we can go in and we can mix them together like so. And then on this track, we could add something like, say, a compressor. To bring them together, put them in a space, etc. And so that's something you'll probably do in order to process like all of your synthesizers at the same time. The other positive of working in this way is that we could have one MIDI clip here, one MIDI clip there. And to do that with an instrument layer requires a little bit extra work. We could drop in our instrument layer here. We could then add something like a polysynth and an organ again. And now if I went into the organ and added a note effect, I could put on that note filter like I showed you before, and then you could give specific ranges of keys that will trigger each of those instruments. I did a whole video on that. In my last video, I talked about that technique, so you can look at that there further. The instrument layer, super straightforward. Just like the FX layer, we can stack multiple instruments in a parallel configuration, mix between the two of them, and come up with one sound. So that's really the point of this. So if we have the polysynth playing back, I can then add in some organ to add. A good example of how you would probably go about doing this is if you wanted to have just like a sub layer to your sound, you could do this. And so if you have headphones on, you can hear how big of a difference that makes. Just throwing that in. The other nice part about the instrument layer is we could always drop a sampler in here. And so if we were making, like say, a kick drum, we could have the E kick. And then we could also go in here, and I think this will work. If not, I'll have to do a quick little workaround. But I could go in here and I can look for a kick drum. I could drag this, drop it in here. It puts it in a sampler. And now if we know what we're doing, we can pitch this, we can adjust the EQs and the various effects so that we can attempt to layer up some drum sounds. It's a really easy and quick technique, super useful to do that too. But what I'm going to show you is how you can use the instrument layer to actually like morph between two presets or two sounds. So the thing I don't like about the XY effect is that it's kind of, or excuse me, the XY instrument, it's kind of deceptive. You think that by pulling this, you're actually morphing, but you're really not. You're just applying various crossfades from A to B. What I really like if I'm making a sound and I want it to morph from one thing to another is actually have the instrument change. So we'll just do it in this situation. We'll use our macro controls here and we'll create an actual morphing preset. So we'll have an A, a B, and something in the middle. I haven't really thought about what I want to do, so we'll just do it quickly. I'm going to have my polysynth and I'm going to have my organ. Turn the organ down, the start. And you'll see how we can do some pretty cool little morphing tricks in here. So let's start with the polysynth. And I'm really not too concerned about the sound I'm making in here. we can also add in a tiny bit of that organ sub on the bottom. Like so. But let's say what I want is to be able to take this sound and morph it into, I don't know, more of like a bass patch when I turn just one knob. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to start routing this to a variety of different areas inside of the polysynth, inside of the organ, and then I'll also maybe add a couple of effects. Like I'll go into the organ here and I'll add in a distortion, and we'll hear the really cool effect you can come up with using the instrument layer and then using the macro controls on the instrument layer, because these will allow us to control anything inside of here. So I'm just going to take this, I'll pull it up like so. I want my sub to come in, maybe adjust a little bit of pulse width. You'll actually have to think about what you want to do here. Can I actually map that? No. Let's see. What else do I want to change? We'll pull the sync back. We'll change this into more of a sustaining sound. We'll pull the attack down. We'll pull the release down. We'll adjust how this envelope is operating. We'll pull it in the other direction. And we'll add a little bit more attack maybe. Shorten that decay out. Increase the sustain. Pull this down like so. And right now I can hear what's happening. So obviously we've taken some things way too far. Don't want to do that. Okay, this is really for the sake of example, so I don't have to get this too perfect. But now we can hear the difference between this sound and that second sound there. And this is a much more natural kind of morphing effect as compared to what we had before with the XY instrument. I could also go into the organ here, and what I could do is I could now really hype this sub level, and I could even increase the amount. So let's turn this off of solo so we can hear it. So very cool. I could also go in and add in some kind of effect if I wanted into both of these instruments. We'll do it with the organ here just to start. And I'll do is I'll add in a distortion, just a basic one. And just to make life easy, I'll just add in a little bit of mix. Not decrease that so much. And maybe inside of the polysynth, what we'll have initially is something like a chorus. also add in a frequency shifter. And now what I'm going to have happen is I'm going to have these turn off as I move across. Cool. So what I'll do is I will go ahead now and pull these mix numbers down. I can actually have it be a little bit more dramatic. So as we're getting into that bass range, these are already going to be off. And I can pull back on the width as well. So now So that's just one example of how you could use something like the instrument layer to create a morphing sound. And I encourage you guys to go in there and mess around with that. You could add 100 more layers and really get this to do some wild things. Hope that's been helpful for you, and you'll hear from me again in the next lesson. Take care.